Welcome back into the Daily Dose. I've been traveling this week. We've had pre-recorded content up for most of the week. Still getting you great BYU information each and every day, but it hasn't been topical. It hasn't been fresh. Today it is. I'm back on the saddle. I'm excited to be back with you. We'll continue our series looking at each position group's Big 12 readiness report card as the offseason moves along and the season gets closer. But today we're going to talk about the fresh news, the latest news, some of the topical things going on around the BYU football program. And ladies and gentlemen, college football season's close. And the one way that you can tell is that Athlon Sports 2023 College Football Preview Magazine is out. And I've got myself a copy of it. Athlon, of course, it doesn't matter what they say about your program. The fact that they're saying something means that football is around the corner. And that's a win for all of us. Now, we're going to dig into what they say, and there's a lot of content to unpack. But my favorite thing that we're going to start with is my favorite thing Athlon does every year. They talk to opposing coaches and get anonymous comments on each of your favorite football teams. And obviously for us here, that means anonymous comments about BYU. This year, they talked to an opposing Big 12 assistant coach. I want to read it verbatim just so that I don't mess it up trying to summarize it. Here is what this anonymous opposing coach had to say about BYU. This first sentence, it's going to sound grammatically incorrect because it is. I'm going to assume it's because Athlon made a typo, but hey, I don't know. Maybe they just don't use all of the words at wherever this Big 12 assistant coach is from. But here's what he has to say. They have most questions of any new team in the league by far. In the short term, they've got to replace a lot of their best playmakers. And they were really streaky last year and don't look like they're league ready at all. The obvious concern is how they recruit because they didn't have enough depth to hold up on an independent schedule. Now they're going to be playing more physical teams every week. So you could really see the bottom fall out, at least at first. Slovis will be an interesting experiment. Jay Hill was a really good hire for them. They're going to be a lot more Utah, more aggressive, and force you to make quick decisions long term. They can recruit to that scheme if they start making big plays. Ultimately, they aren't going to change culturally, and the quality of player they can get probably won't change because they're a Power 5 program now. Now, I want to really delve into a few of those comments, but particularly the last comment made, I could not disagree more. I think we're already seeing that BYU is recruiting at a higher level. Now, they're not recruiting at an SEC level. They're not competing for a top 15 recruiting class, but relative to where BYU has been, they are absolutely getting a different type of player. And these aren't just players that are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Just in the last few months, we're talking about guys like Caleb Etienne. We're talking about Deion Smith. We're talking about Eddie Heckard, who I recognize came from Weber State. But when he transferred from Weber State, he had offers from the likes of UCLA and Oregon State and most of the Pac-12 conference. So this isn't an accurate statement. I think it's categorically false. We're already seeing that BYU is getting a different type of player. And even within the membership of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I don't think BYU gets a Kingsley Suamataia if they don't have the Big 12 down the pipeline. I think he transfers elsewhere when he leaves Oregon. I think you saw today, Reiner Swanson released his top 5 programs. That's a 4-star tight end, and BYU's right there firmly in the mix and maybe even the favorite to land him. They signed a 4-star in Jackson Bowers last year. So the statement from this coach that they can't recruit better just because they're not a P5 isn't true. It's just not true. Now, they may not be able to suddenly recruit with the likes of Alabama and Georgia. That would be crazy to think that that's the expectation. But can they recruit better than they have? 100% unequivocally, the answer is yes. There's no debate about that. And we're already seeing that here in the first few months of BYU being able to recruit as a Big 12 conference member. The next thing I want to delve into, his comments about the independent schedule. I don't know if this coach assumes that because BYU is playing an independent schedule, they're loading up with the likes of UConn and UMass and WAC conference teams. That wasn't the case. BYU played 4 or 5 Power 5 programs last year. They played 7 Power 5 programs in 2021. When they're not playing P5 level teams, they're playing teams like Boise State, the best, Houston, the best of the G5 programs that they could get. The schedules are certainly tougher in the Big 12 Conference. His larger point is absolutely true, but it's not like BYU has been, out playing high school kids. They haven't been playing even Mountain West Conference schedules. They've been playing much more difficult schedules than that, and they've held up okay. It hasn't been pretty. It hasn't always been great. The depth does need to improve, but it's not like BYU hasn't had depth, right? I mean, they were able to go in with a mostly third-string roster and knock off USC a couple of years ago in the Coliseum. And last year, in the final regular season game of the year, they took a backup quarterback for most of the second half and an injury-riddled defense and got the best of the Cardinal. Now, I get that Stanford and USC haven't been great, but that statement that they haven't held up against an independent schedule and, therefore they don't stand a chance against a P5 schedule, that just rings really hollow to me. That feels like a coach who hasn't paid a ton of attention to really what BYU has done. They've got to get better. There's no question about it. I mean, any BYU fan right now is hoping for a bowl game in 2023. And no way do I want to create this expectation that somehow BYU is going to compete for a Big 12 championship because they've played an independent schedule. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is this expectation that the bottom's going to fall out and BYU will be a perennial bottom feeder, that just doesn't really ring true to me. I just don't see it. I think BYU has too much talent. They have too many good coaches, and they have a recruiting pool that it does raise the floor of what they're able to do in recruiting. There maybe is a cap, there maybe is a ceiling because of the honor code and things like that, but there's a certain type of kid that wants BYU every class. And as BYU now can offer more and more outside of just the LDS experience to the LDS kid, there's going to be more players who want to come in and be a part of that BYU football program. It's already proving to be true, and it will remain true as we move forward in the coming months. So I disagree with a lot of what this Big 12 assistant coach had to say about BYU. Ultimately, it's up to the Cougars to decide whether they're going to prove him to be right or wrong over the course of the season and over the course of the next several years. I think BYU will be able to prove him wrong, but we'll see. We'll find out. There's a lot more that we're going to unpack in this Athlon preview in the coming days and weeks, but we really wanted to hone in on those comments from an assistant coach today. It's the best thing that Athlon does. They've got those comments on every school. Go pick up at your local grocery store. Go pick up a copy of the 2023 preview magazine and just digest it all. There's a ton of great stuff. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, sharing. This is going to be the premier platform, premier YouTube channel for all things BYU, and I could not be more pumped about the 2023 football season. We're going to have the best coverage that there is here at the Daily Dose, brought to you by Give 'em Hell Brigham. So please subscribe so you don't miss a second of what we've got in store for you. Once again, thank you so much, and until next time, give 'em hell.